So yeah, about that whole debt ceiling thing. This is kind of getting interesting. Because I figured at some point in time, you know, and I figured, to be honest with you, I thought it would have been like Obama's time. Why don't we just remove the debt ceiling altogether? Just get rid of it. No more votes, no more nothing. 20 trillion, 25 trillion, 30 trillion, 40 trillion, doesn't matter. Just remove it altogether. Now, standing back, if I were to see that happen, that to me would be a red flag of whatever country it was at the time. If you said this such and such country did that, I would say, boy, that ain't a good sign. That means they're so massively in debt, they realize they can never pay it off. So they'll just keep going deeper into debt and keep authorizing an unlimited amount of borrowing. But of course, my question is, of that borrowing, if 20 trillion becomes 30 trillion, becomes 40 trillion, we are making payments on that debt. And even if they keep the rates down low where they are now, like let's say they just can't go any higher, if, you know, wherever, you know, Federal Reserve, we're going to hike again. Actually, never mind, that's it, it's the end, we're not going any higher. Then even at these low rates, $20 trillion at, you know, such and such percent versus 30 trillion at that same such and such percent is a huge payment that you and I, the taxpayer, has to pay. Of course, and speaking for you too, I will, as taxpayers would say, well, Federal Reserve, you printed how much on your balance sheet still? $4.5 trillion. You keep talking about, you're going to unwind that. Bernanke came out the other day. I covered it. Maybe we don't need to unwind it. Maybe we don't need to put it back down to 500 billion. Let's leave it at 4.5 trillion. I could see a good use for that. Really? You don't say. So if that's the case, again, why are we paying taxes? Why are you taking money out of my income tax? Why are you making me pay driver's license fees? Why are you doing any of this stuff? If you can just print the money, add it to the back end of the debt, have the Federal Reserve step in and buy it all back at the end anyways, what the hell? Why the hell is everybody struggling? Do you know what would happen to people who are on minimum wage right now who absolutely struggle to pay their bills if they were all of a sudden told, oh, by the way, your income tax, there's no more such thing. You keep all the money. Oh, all those fees and driver's license fees and tags and license every year, that's going away too. Gone. Those people who make minimum wage would see a quite nice increase in their way of life. So here we have, it looks like Donald Trump and Chuck Schumer kind of on the same page. You know, maybe we should just get rid of the whole thing. Now, my question is that a markets rally moment? Or is that a markets don't like that? In my opinion, based off of everything else I've seen thus far, markets will rally on any damn thing. Oh, which is horrible. You just allowed the blank check of spending for forever. That's it. Gone. Markets rally. Hey, why would they rally? Well, they know that hot money can come right over back into their markets. The Federal Reserve can go continue pumping up the stock market, continue pumping up these special specific companies in the stock market so that their price to earnings, which are out of control, beyond levels of sanity, go even farther beyond that. Is there not anybody who's conservative enough to say, look, we need to tighten the belt. We need to deal with this problem, not stop it, and just say, let's let it go. You know, hey, you have a $20,000 credit card limit? Not anymore. It's as high as you need it to go. What happens when you get given a credit card that's as high as it needs to go? You want to talk about some serious spending that's about to go down? Anyways, zero hedge. Trump wants to end the debt ceiling. Schumer agrees. And Politico reports that President Donald Trump suggested to congressional leaders on Wednesday morning that votes to raise the debt ceiling would be done away with altogether, according to 3 people familiar with the conversation. In a meeting with GOP and Democratic leaders, in which Trump sided with the Democrats on a fiscal deal to raise the debt ceiling, the president said he believes the votes are unproductive. Those people say, why are we, in other words, this whole voting for the debt ceiling is completely unproductive. Get rid of this whole vote. It'll go as high as we need it to go, and that's the end of it. Now, again, I will raise my hand. Well, if you guys are going to do that, the whole Medicare, handout, welfare, all that stuff that's killing, the money we're spending so much money on, well, now what? You got a blank check. You got a blank, unlimited credit card. Does all that get fixed all of a sudden? We just throw money at it, hey, no problem. Let's keep these things going. I mean, you could, right? Don't know if that's the right decision ultimately, but, you know. With Congress set to lift the debt ceiling into December, right? They want let's just give a clean 3-month extension. I thought we already did an extension earlier this year. And then the Treasury had to do little maneuvers, remember that? To give us back to push us out to September, October, which we're here now. Let's push it out to December. Give ourselves a Christmas present later. With Congress set to lift the debt ceiling into December as part of the deal, Trump floated the idea that the next time Congress votes to raise the debt ceiling, it could be the last. He said, conversations should happen over the next 3 months, according to people in the room. President Trump has now added his thoughts, telling reporters, we have great respect for the sanctity of the debt ceiling, as he meets with Emir of Kuwait. Of Kuwait. There are a lot of good reasons to get rid of the debt ceiling altogether, Trump says, adding that he discussed it with congressional leaders yesterday, and adding that there will never be a problem on the debt ceiling. Really? And he tweeted, well, CBS did, we have a great respect for the sanctity of the debt ceiling, President Trump says, according to CBS. The Dems are right, of course, delighted by Trump's shocking U-turn. Schumer said such a move could not be accomplished now, but indicated he would talk to his caucus about considering structural changes to the debt limit in December, a conversation Trump supported. House Minority Leader Nancy, try to say this without throwing up. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, California, also appeared interested in the deal but was non-committal. The debt ceiling is a key leverage point for members of the minority, particularly because it can be filibustered in the Senate and requires 60 votes. As Washington Post confirms, President Trump and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer have agreed to pursue a deal that would permanently remove the requirement that Congress repeatedly raise the debt ceiling. 3 people familiar with the decision said. Trump and Schumer discussed the idea Wednesday during an Oval Office meeting. Schumer, Trump, and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, I don't know right, Democrat, California, Nancy Pelosi, agreed to work together over the next several months to see if they can finalize a plan which would need to be approved by Congress. One of these people familiar described it as a gentleman's agreement. In other words, you think that's doable? Yep. Want to do it? Yep. Miss Pelosi, sound good? Yes, it does. Okay. Verbal, gentleman's agreement. Yep. We all agree? Yep. Have a nice day. That kind of a thing. We suspect reps or Republicans won't be so happy. Freedom Caucus legislators, angry about Wednesday's deal, promised a spirited fight in December of the debt ceiling. Conservatives are unhappy that the White House and congressional leaders have agreed to raise the debt ceiling without spending cuts. However, Orrin Hatch, Republican senator for Utah and chair of Senate Finance Committee, says he wants to abolish debt ceiling votes. Translated, according to Zero Hedge, of course, Trump suggests that there should be no constraint at all, not even the fiscally conservative pretense of the debt ceiling law, over how much debt the government can pile on the backs of future generations of Americans. If Obama can add 10 trillion, we are sure Trump can do better. And I told you, whoever the next person was going to be in that office, president, if you think it was bad what Obama did, wait for the next one. And I showed you, look, back in 1981, we had our first $1 trillion in debt ever. Shortly after we got off the gold standard, mind you, 1971. But nonetheless, 10 years later, first $1 trillion is acquired in, debt ceiling, national debt. A few short years later, it jumps up more. Clinton, Bush, etc. 3 trillion, 6 trillion. Bush, Obama comes in 9 trillion, 10 trillion. And if you look at the timeline, you see huge gap from the time our country was created to the first time we got $1 trillion. Then from 1980 to say 2000, much narrower window with a bigger jump in that debt. And then from 2000 to 2008, Bush, even narrower window, big debt included. Obama takes over. Bush is walking out. They up the debt ceiling again to 10 trillion. Obama takes over. It's now 20 trillion after he leaves. He added 10 trillion by himself. And guess what? As I said, The next one's going to do far, like he just said, we bet Trump can do better. He doesn't have a choice. It could have been Hillary, could have been whoever. They don't have a choice. All the stuff that has to be paid for, we got to borrow money into existence to pay for it. When, with the stroke of a pen and Congress bringing a bill to the president's office, you could abolish the Federal Reserve System. You could say we're going back to the greenback system that President Abraham Lincoln put in place that helped him win the Civil War. No debt. We don't borrow it. We just print it and we pay all the government's bills we need to pay. And it worked great. But there was no need for a Jewish-run central bank. So President Abraham Lincoln had to go. And you know that story. John Wilkes Booth. Oh my God. And then we had a central bank installed right afterwards. Greenback, bye-bye. We will go back to borrowing money into existence. And that's where we are today. They could stop all this nonsense if they just printed the money. And by the way, if you want to watch an awesome documentary made by someone you might know, Bill Still, he was the creator of Money Masters, which is great, but he kind of did not really a part 2, but kind of like a redo, better one, known as The Secret of Oz, like the Wizard of Oz, The Secret of Oz. And it goes over this stuff. It is a fantastic documentary, and you will realize how easy it is to fix this. And yet they won't. We have all this poverty, and the rich, and the poor, and the bailouts. There's no need for any of it. We could fix all of these problems. You would have no kind of taxes needed. Property taxes. You would have the absolute textbook definition of private property. No one can seize it from you because you didn't pay your taxes. No. There would be no need for a tax collection. It would be paid for. Government just pays it. You're going to print it anyway? Print it. Print it and pay yourselves. Pay your employees, which are government employees. Pay them all. And while you're at it, you're going to essentially pay my tax bill to you, which doesn't exist. Therefore, you don't need to actually pay it. You don't need it. Again, you just print the money you need. But then they don't have control over people. They can't control you as good. And I think that's the gist of it. But whatever. We'll see where this fiasco leads to. Take care.